My mother-in-law tried to ambush me with divorce papers, so I ruined their lives instead. The moment I saw the text, I knew something was off. It was from my husband's sister, Lauren. We weren't close. She never texted me unless she had some passive-aggressive comment or an order from their mother. So when her name popped up on my phone, my stomach twisted. Hey, we're having a small family gathering this Saturday at Mom's house. It's important. Be there at 6 p.m. It's a surprise, so don't tell Adam. No, hope you can make it. No pleasantries. Just a demand. I showed the text to my best friend Olivia. She raised an eyebrow. That's weird. Why wouldn't Adam know about it? Good question. My husband, Adam, was glued to his family. If they were planning something, he'd normally be the first to know. The fact that they hadn't told him made my gut clench. Maybe it's some kind of intervention? A health issue. I muttered. Or maybe, Olivia said, taking a slow sip of her wine, they're setting you up. I laughed, but the thought lingered. Something about this felt off. But I had to see for myself. I didn't tell Adam. Dad, I played along. Me, sure. See you then. Saturday evening, I drove to my mother-in-law's house. A massive estate in a gated community outside Savannah, Georgia. The kind of house that looked grand but felt cold. The second I stepped inside, I knew this wasn't a casual get-together. Adam's entire family was there. His mother, his father, Lauren, his two brothers, and even his aunt and uncle who lived 3 states away. They were all seated in the living room, arranged like a damn boardroom meeting. And in the middle of the coffee table, a folder. The air was thick with tension. Sit down, Adam's mother Helen said smoothly, but there was no warmth in her voice. I didn't move. I stood my ground by the doorway, arms crossed. What's going on? Adam's father Richard picked up the folder and slid it toward me. We need you to sign these. I stepped closer, glanced at the top page, and felt my stomach drop. A slow, breathy chuckle escaped my lips. You're joking. Helen folded her hands in her lap, her expression coldly polite. We've given this a lot of thought and it's clear, you're not a good fit for this family. Lauren smirked. Come on, let's not act surprised. You know you don't belong here. We're just making this easy for Adam. The sheer audacity of it. I looked around. They weren't suggesting I leave. They were ordering me out of my own marriage. I crossed my arms. Where is Adam? Richard shifted. He's not here. He doesn't know about this yet. We're sparing him the stress of. I held up a hand. Let me get this straight. You ambushed me, drew up divorce papers without his knowledge, and expect me to just sign them like some obedient little housewife. Helen's lips pressed into a tight smile. It's for the best. That's when I smirked. I reached into my bag, pulled out my own folder and tossed it onto the coffee table. Actually, I said, leaning in, I have a surprise for you too. Silence. They stared at the folder like it was a ticking bomb. Richard was the first to snatch it up. He flipped through the pages and his face turned beet red. His hands shook. What is this? He stammered. Helen snatched the papers from him, flipping through them, her expression morphing from confusion to pure horror. Lauren grabbed a page and gasped. How did you? I leaned back, smiling. I've known for a while now. I was just waiting for the right time. I checked my watch. And guess what? That time is now. Richard's face twisted with rage. This is fake. There's no way you. Oh, but I did. I tilted my head. And you just proved you recognize exactly what's in those documents. Otherwise, why would you be so scared? Silence. Adam's uncle, who had been quiet up until now, grabbed a page for himself. His eyes widened. Richard, is this true? Richard didn't answer. His jaw was clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. Helen's hands trembled as she set the papers down. She looked up at me, her face pale. You have no idea what you've done. I smiled. Oh, I think I do. The room was dead silent. Their perfect little world was crumbling. And I was just getting started. Helen's hands were still trembling as she set the papers down, her knuckles turning white. Richard had gone completely rigid, his face locked in an expression of pure rage. Lauren's eyes flicked between them, her smirk completely wiped away. This is ridiculous, Richard finally growled. You think you can just waltz in here and throw around accusations? Do you even understand what you're doing? I crossed my arms, cocking my head to the side. Oh, I understand perfectly. What I don't understand is why you look so damn guilty. Silence. Lauren let out a shaky laugh, trying to recover. You're bluffing. There's no way you could have found any of this. I shrugged. Funny thing about money trails, Lauren. They're messy, but they always lead somewhere. And yours? Led straight to embezzlement. Helen inhaled sharply, her eyes darting to her daughter. Lauren's face drained of color. She's lying. I reached into my bag, pulling out another stack of documents. Oh really? Then you won't mind explaining the fake invoices, the shell accounts, and the unauthorized transfers all conveniently signed under your name. And oh, let's not forget the payments to your little business consultant in Miami. Sound familiar? Richard turned to his daughter so fast it was a miracle he didn't snap his own neck. What is she talking about? Lauren's lip curled. It's nothing, Dad. She's twisting things. Helen exhaled shakily. Lauren, is this true? Lauren's mouth opened but nothing came out. Because she knew she was cornered. I leaned forward. Here's the thing, Lauren. You all thought I was some clueless little housewife, someone who wouldn't notice what was going on. But I did. And I documented everything. Helen's voice shook. You were spying on us? I scoffed. Spying? No. I was protecting myself. Because you all made one mistake. You thought you were untouchable. Richard slammed his hand on the table. You little. The front door swung open. And there was Adam. He froze in the doorway, his gaze moving from the divorce papers on the table to the stack of evidence I had just dumped in front of his family. His brows knitted in confusion. What the hell is going on? Helen was on her feet in an instant. Sweetheart, we were just. I raised my voice, cutting her off. Your family tried to ambush me into signing divorce papers behind your back, Adam. But they weren't expecting me to have my own paperwork. Adam's face fell. What? I pointed at the table. See for yourself. That's every shady deal, every stolen cent, every hidden account. They were using you as their personal ATM. They planned to push me out before I could tell you. Adam's hand shook as he reached for the papers. He flipped through them, his eyes scanning the pages rapidly. The color drained from his face. Mom? Dad? Tell me this isn't real. His father's jaw was clenched so tightly I thought he might crack a tooth. His mother reached for his arm. We were just trying to help you. Adam yanked away from her touch like she'd burned him. By stealing from me? Lauren shot me a look of pure hatred. You just had to ruin everything, didn't you? Oh, Lauren, I said, feigning sympathy. Everything was already ruined. You just didn't know it yet. Adam turned to his father, his voice barely above a whisper. You put our house up as collateral. Without telling me. Richard's eyes darkened. It was a business decision. A business decision? Adam's voice cracked. You were gambling with my future. With my marriage. And you didn't even have the decency to tell me? Helen tried again. Adam, please, let's talk about this as a family. Adam let out a bitter laugh. Oh, now you want to be a family? After you went behind my back and tried to force my wife out. Lauren sneered. She was never really part of the family. Adam turned to me, his eyes filled with something I hadn't seen in a long time, clarity. He looked at the divorce papers his parents had prepared. Then slowly he looked at mine. His voice was quiet but firm. What do we do next? I smiled. First, I said, sliding a pen across the table, you sign my papers. Lauren scoffed. You think you're so clever, don't you? You think this means you win. I tilted my head. Lauren, sweetheart. This wasn't a game. But if it was, then yes. I just won. Adam's hand hovered over the papers. He took a deep breath, then he signed. Adam's pen dragged across the paper, sealing his decision in ink. The scratch of the nib echoed in the silent room. His hand was shaking but his resolve was firm. His signature sat boldly at the bottom of my papers, not theirs. For the first time since I had stepped into this house, I let myself exhale. Helen let out a sharp breath, her composure slipping. Adam, she said, voice trembling. You can't be serious. He didn't look at her. He just stared at the documents in front of him, the weight of reality settling onto his shoulders. I should have seen this sooner. Lauren, who had been seething in silence, finally snapped. This is her fault. She turned on me, venom in her glare. You tricked him. You manipulated him into. I let out a cold laugh. I tricked him? Oh honey, you and your parents have been pulling the strings on his entire life. But now that he's cutting those strings, you're panicking. Richard stood, his chair scraping against the floor. This isn't over. I met his gaze head on. Oh, it absolutely is. Adam finally spoke, his voice low but sharp. Mom, Dad. Lauren. He swallowed hard, his hands curling into fists at his sides. You were supposed to have my back. You were supposed to be my family. And you tried to ruin my life for money. Helen's face twisted in desperation. We were looking out for you. Everything we did was to protect your future. Adam shook his head. You weren't protecting me. You were using me. And the worst part? I let you. Helen stepped forward, reaching for him. Sweetheart, please. Adam stepped back. She froze. Don't call me that. Not after this. Lauren scoffed. Oh my God, stop being so dramatic. You're making a mistake. No, Lauren. Adam's voice was calm, but there was something new in his eyes. Clarity. Strength. The mistake was trusting any of you. Helen's face crumpled. What are you saying? Adam let out a bitter laugh. You really don't get it, do you? You thought you could ambush my wife into a divorce. You stole from me. You lied to me. You put our home on the line without even telling me. And you thought I'd just, what? Forgive you. Lauren opened her mouth, but Adam cut her off. You're dead to me. The room went silent. Helen's hands clutched at the pearls around her neck like they might stop her from collapsing. Adam, you don't mean that. I do. Richard slammed a fist onto the table. You're walking away from your blood over some woman? Adam turned toward me, his gaze steady. She's my wife. She's the only one who's ever actually had my back. The temperature in the room dropped. Lauren scoffed, looking between us. You really think you can just leave? That this won't come back to bite you? I smirked. Oh, I think we'll be just fine. You on the other hand. I slid one last folder across the table. Lauren hesitated before grabbing it. When she opened it, her entire face drained of color. What the hell is this? She whispered. I leaned in, my voice mocking. That, sweetheart, is a full forensic breakdown of your financial activities. See, while I was looking into Richard and Helen's dealings, I found something very interesting under your name. Lauren flipped through the pages in horror. No. You. Richard grabbed the papers from her, skimming through them furiously. His expression darkened. Lauren, tell me this isn't real. Lauren opened her mouth, but she had nothing. Helen turned to her daughter, horrified. Lauren, what did you do? I chuckled. Looks like Daddy's little girl wasn't just helping herself to Adam's money. She was skimming off the family accounts too. Helen actually gasped. You stole from us? Lauren shot up from her seat. It wasn't like that. But Richard had already turned on her. You entitled little idiot. We've spent years building this wealth and you were just, what? Siphoning money out behind our backs. Helen's hand flew to her chest, hyperventilating. How much did you take? I answered for her. About $350,000. Give or take. Lauren whirled on me, her face red with fury. You bitch. Adam stepped between us. Watch your mouth. Lauren flinched. Adam, you have to help me. I'm your sister. Adam's jaw clenched. Yeah. And you tried to ruin my life. Lauren collapsed into her chair, gripping her hair. This can't be happening. Richard rubbed his temples. This is a nightmare. Helen just sat there, silent, shaking, broken. I tilted my head. You were so focused on getting rid of me, you didn't even realize the real snake was right under your nose. I grabbed my folder, looking at Adam. You ready to go? He didn't hesitate. As we turned toward the door, Helen let out a desperate sob. Adam, please. We're your family. He didn't even look back. Not anymore. Lauren's voice cracked as we reached the door. You'll regret this. I glanced over my shoulder. Oh, I doubt that. But you. I smirked. You're about to regret everything. And with that we walked out, leaving their world in ruins. We walked out of that house with nothing but silence behind us. The moment the front door shut, it felt like a weight had lifted. Adam exhaled deeply, rubbing his face like he was waking up from a nightmare. I should have seen this sooner, he muttered. I was so blind. I squeezed his hand. You weren't blind, Adam. You just wanted to believe your family actually cared about you. He looked at me, regret swimming in his eyes. They never did they? I shook my head. No. You were just their bank account. By the time we got home, Adam was quiet, lost in thought. I could tell he was replaying everything in his head, the years of manipulation, the lies, the betrayal. I didn't push him, I let him process. But I had work to do. The first thing I did was call my lawyer. We had all the evidence, now it was time to use it. Fraud, embezzlement, financial misconduct. It was a legal nightmare waiting to explode. And the best part? They had no idea what was coming. 3 weeks later, I got a call from an old acquaintance. Someone who ran in the same elite social circles as Adam's parents. You really did a number on them, she chuckled. Helen had a full-blown meltdown at the country club last night. Something about banks freezing assets and the IRS breathing down their necks. I smirked. Oh, how tragic. Turns out, once the forensic accountants got involved, Richard's business was exposed for fraud. Years of shady deals and money siphoned through backdoor accounts had finally caught up with him. When the banks came calling for their money back, they had nothing left to give. The family estate. Gone. Their luxury cars. Repossessed. The untouchable legacy they built. Shattered. Helen tried to keep up appearances for a while, but when their entire empire crumbled, she disappeared from public life. Last I heard, she was living in a rental house on the outskirts of town, still in complete denial about how it all fell apart. Lauren had it worse. Much worse. The moment her embezzlement came to light, her job fired her on the spot. She tried to lie her way out, blame clerical errors, but the paper trail was airtight. Not only did she get blacklisted from every firm she had ever worked with, but her charges started stacking up. She called Adam 6 times in one night. He didn't answer. He tried texting. Adam, please. I need help. They're taking me to court. You have to talk to them. Silence. The last time we heard about Lauren, she was drowning in debt, fighting legal battles, and completely alone. No more trust fund. No more elite status. Just a woman who thought she was invincible until she wasn't. Adam and I finalized our divorce, but this time, it was on our terms. I got everything I was entitled to, my share of the assets, my security, my freedom. Adam, he walked away from his family for good. One day he looked at me over coffee and said, "You saved me." I shook my head. No, Adam. You saved yourself. We parted ways amicably, and honestly, I think he needed the fresh start as much as I did. It didn't stop with their finances. I made sure everyone knew exactly what they had done. Their social circles, gone. Their reputation, destroyed. They spent years looking down on me, treating me like an outsider. But in the end, I was the one who walked away free, while they were left with nothing. Some people think revenge is about rage, about getting even. But real revenge is about watching people fall under the weight of their own arrogance. And trust me, they fell. Hard. I thought I was done with them. I thought I had walked away free and untouchable. But people like Helen and Richard, they don't go down without a fight. And Lauren? She was too proud, too vindictive to accept defeat quietly. So they tried one last move. It started with a legal notice. A ridiculous, desperate attempt to claw back what they had lost. Richard and Helen, in their infinite arrogance, had filed a lawsuit against me, claiming that I had somehow orchestrated the destruction of their family. Their argument? That I had manipulated Adam, defamed their character, and ruined their financial standing. I laughed so hard when my lawyer called I nearly dropped my coffee. They're claiming defamation? I asked, still chuckling. I didn't have to defame them. They did that all on their own. My lawyer sighed. They don't have a case. But they're trying to drag you through the mud, hoping you'll settle. I smirked. Then let's make sure they regret that decision. I countersued for malicious prosecution and emotional distress, demanding that they cover all my legal fees and damages. My lawyer made sure their entire financial situation was on the record. Every frozen asset, every unpaid debt, every fraudulent transaction. It was all public knowledge now. The lawsuit didn't even make it to trial. Richard and Helen backed down when they realized I wouldn't budge, and their last attempt at salvaging power crumbled into nothing. But not before their name was dragged through the media circus I made sure followed the case. The headline: Disgraced socialites attempt to sue former daughter-in-law, and fail spectacularly. While her parents were burning their last bridges in the legal system, Lauren was spiraling. The fraud charges against her were stacking up, and she was running out of money and connections to protect her. She tried to negotiate a deal with prosecutors, offering up evidence against her own parents to lessen her sentence. But guess what? They had already done the same thing to her. Lauren had backed herself into a corner, and now there was no way out. She was sentenced to 5 years in prison for financial fraud. She sobbed in court, pleaded for leniency, but the judge wasn't interested. And Adam? He didn't show up for the trial. She was completely alone. With their family torn apart and their finances obliterated, Helen and Richard tried to disappear. Their once prestigious name was now nothing more than a cautionary tale among the elite circles they used to control. One day I got a call from an old acquaintance. "You'll never believe what I just saw," she said, laughing. "Helen is working at a high-end boutique, selling handbags to the same women she used to host charity galas with." I nearly spit out my drink. No way. Oh, it gets better. She tried to act like she still belonged, but nobody wants to be seen with her anymore. Her own friends won't even acknowledge her. Poetic justice. A few months later I ran into Adam by chance. We were in different places now, both of us healing, rebuilding. "Do you regret any of it?" he asked me, his voice softer than I remembered. I thought about it for a second. "No," I said honestly. "I don't. Because in the end I didn't just walk away. I won. They thought they were untouchable. They thought they could destroy me. But all they did was set themselves on fire. Some people learn their lessons. Others, they crash and burn. And I got to watch the whole thing happen.